Hello, welcome to the first of three special construction record podcasts where I talk to
John Tenpenny, editor of ReNew Canada magazine.
and we're here today to talk about, first I should explain, we're going to have like three podcasts and we're going to go through different facets of the top 100 that ReNew does every year. Why don't we have John explain to us what ReNew is and what the top 100 is and sort of the background of the magazine.
ReNew Canada has been around since 2004, and we refer to ourselves as the voice of public infrastructure in Canada. We focus on projects, and our content offers solutions addressing the challenges that arise in building and maintaining critical assets across the country, from energy to transit, healthcare, transportation, water, utilities, etc. And on the top 100 side, the 2022 report will be our 16th edition of this report, and it's basically like it sounds. It's the top 100 public infrastructure projects, which we rank by total contract dollar value. And so it's, like I said, 100 of the country's largest public infrastructure projects.
That was going to be my next question, how a project get ranks on top 100. You just answered that, but maybe can you go in a little more detail into that? Like how you get the facts in the first place?
Sure. The biggest factor is it big enough in terms of dollar value? Because we go from billions of dollars. Last year, our 100th project was, I believe, 379 million in value. So that's sort of the baseline. So our base criteria for projects is the project is in design, environmental assessment, procurement, or construction phases. One of those. The overall budget or contract value has been established. Financial support for the project is in place, and at least one company or firm is working or has worked on the project.
Okay, and I would imagine, especially over this span of years you've done this, that you've seen what's growing, what's rising, what isn't, what government is looking at doing, and other projects. So maybe you could tell me what's got the most growth and what's rising at the charts and what isn't.
First, I'll give you a quick breakdown of our sectors. Our major sectors are transit, energy, buildings, transportation, and then what we call other, which usually includes wastewater, water projects, communications, and we also put in remediation projects under that. As you can imagine, transit has and always will be one of our, and usually is the biggest in terms of dollar value projects. Energy as well, because energy projects tend to be quite large, right, in scope. So maybe there aren't as many energy projects compared to, say, buildings or transit in a strict number, but if you add up the dollar value, energy usually is in the top two, along with transit. I will say though, for as we're heading into 22, energy took a bit of a dip, and that was mostly due to a couple of really big projects, top 10 projects actually dropping off the list because of substantial completion. That being Muskrat Falls and the kiosk in project Manitoba. And transit continues to be strong. Another sector I'd say that continues to show growth is in our building sector under healthcare. We added basically hospitals. We added a few more healthcare, so that number went up as a portion of the top 100 this year, and I can't see that one going away either. I mean, healthcare in this country is a big issue, and governments building new hospitals and things like that, I think, are just going to continue. I know several other projects that didn't get on the list this year because they haven't quite qualified in terms of whether being under construction or getting full financial support. But I know that we'll add new ones next year as well under that sector. And as you can imagine, as I said, transit is huge. We've added a few big projects, as I'm sure you can imagine, especially in the GTA. There were some big announcements this year in terms of some transit projects that were launched and continue to. Once again, transit is usually a long-term scenario, right? These things take sometimes 10, 15 years, so they tend to remain. So there are already some very large transit projects in the GTA, especially that continue to rank in our top 10, top 20.
And so, kind of taking more of a bird's eye view, what are some other trends you've seen from this year's Top 100? Like besides sector growth, what other things have you seen that maybe things haven't advanced as much as they have in previous years?
I think one of the trends that may or may not surprise. I mean, pretty much every year, our total value dollar for the entire list goes up, and it did again this year, and actually by I want to say maybe a substantial number. And I think that might surprise some people, given that we've been enduring a pandemic for the last almost 2 years. But I think what it
Mhm.
says is the infrastructure industry is pretty resilient, and that you know even with a pandemic, governments from municipal to federal, continue to invest in projects, across all sectors, and that I think people will see some projects year to year go up and down in terms of value, and some major projects actually went up in value this year as they continue to grow and expand. I wanted to actually bring up, from a recent webinar that we
Mhm.
conducted in as a preview to the top 100 list. We had some people from across the country involved, and actually we had someone from Infrastructure BC, and he commented that in BC in particular, compared to Ontario, Quebec, in the pandemic, they were able to continue and even get a lot accomplished because their government never had to mandate any construction lockdowns that
Mhm.
occurred in Quebec and Ontario. And so what they did was identify construction as an essential service and allowed work to carry on. And as people will see in the top 100, BC is one of our major areas for infrastructure projects, along with, of course, Ontario and Quebec. So I think maybe that the number going up overall might surprise some people considering what we've been through, but I think it just shows that infrastructure, especially public infrastructure, had no matter what.
And so you mentioned the webinar. Maybe you could go into more detail about the webinar and how you came about doing it and what insights you gleaned from it.
Sure. Yeah. We hold a about monthly or bi-monthly webinars called Infra Intelligence discussion sessions, and recently we had one devoted to looking at our top 100 projects list. At this session, we invited representatives from Infrastructure BC and Infrastructure Ontario, as well as someone from WSP to talk about how they're seeing infrastructure projects, how they've been affected by the pandemic, and moving forward. And it was noted that from 2017 to 2021, the assets listed under development for our top 100 projects report rose from 163 billion to last year being 253.8 billion. And they were in agreement that that this was going to continue to grow. And as I mentioned previously, we saw that in our 22 top 100 projects
Mhm.
report, the total value going up. And they were also talking about how the pandemic slowed or didn't slow, and construction and infrastructure projects had to make adjustments. One panelist noted that he saw it sort of as a stress test for the industry, procurement or infrastructure or operating facilities. It's about how agencies dealt with the challenge of not being able to get people together in a room, right? That
Mhm.
was probably the biggest challenge, and how projects were able to adapt. And that person actually pointed to the utilities energy sector, and so mentioned that there hadn't been a COVID related electricity outage pretty much during the whole pandemic. Now that doesn't mean there weren't outages, but they weren't related to work not being able to be done or completed because of COVID. So I thought that was an interesting point to bring up, and just again shows how resilient the infrastructure industry has been during the past 2 years.
And you mentioned people getting back together in person, and crazy variants notwithstanding, hopefully in February you're going to do just that. What
Yeah,
will
yeah. And February 22nd, 2022, we're going to get back to being in person. Every year we hold a top 100 projects annual owners and project owners dinner. So and it's held at the Carlu in Toronto. So we're really looking forward to getting back to that. Last year, of course, like Everybody else, we had a online version with some panels. So we're looking forward to everyone getting back together in the same room, and we're still finalizing it, but we have I can say that our panel discussion is going to be around the area of healthcare infrastructure. And as I mentioned a little earlier, that's a big area of growth that we're seeing in the top 100 projects. And we're also still waiting to confirm our keynote speaker, but I can say that in the last 2 years, Minister McKenna was our keynote speaker. So you can sort of draw some conclusions from that, but we're hoping to announce our keynote soon as well.
We're going to have 2 more of these podcasts. Maybe you want to give not any big details, but just sort of a sneak peek. What should people expect the next 2 podcasts?
Well, I think we're going to talk about dive into a little more detail without giving anything away. We don't want to give away our #1 project this year, but I think we're going to talk a little bit about how they sort of fall regionally. Whether it be in Western Canada or Eastern Canada, and maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the projects that are going to land in our top 10, or some of the biggest projects from those areas of the country. And and we can also, I guess, dive a little into whether those regional differences are seen in the sectors that pop up in the top 100.
Okay, great. And everybody, you can look forward to those in the next 2 Wednesdays, and you can listen to that or the rest of the Construction Record podcasts at Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, and on the Journal of Commerce and the Daily Commercial News websites. Thanks for listening.